On March the 21st, 1968, the first sr-71 operational sortie was flown out of Kadena Air Force Base, Okinawa, Japan. The Vietnam War had been raging for 5 years. The role of the sr-71 would be to gather photographic and electronic intelligence of their enemies. They would fly daily over territories where one mistake could cost the lives of the crew and provoke an international incident. Above 60,000 feet, the crew switches off all contact with air traffic control. Only a select few know where the Blackbird goes next. Sitting in the rear cockpit, the RSO must keep the plane on the black line, the pre-planned route to the target. As they reach enemy territory, he concentrates on the radar and defensive systems, trying to jam enemy communications in the event of a missile launch.
We carried the same type of jammer that was used throughout the Vietnam War by all of the fighters and bombers, which attempted to jam the communication between the radar site and the missile itself. Once they began the communication, our indications in the cockpit would go from warning to jamming, and it would be jamming that communication link to the missile.
But sometimes the enemy would try to attack the sr-71 by launching a missile without any radar guidance.
We were coming in off the water, headed inland, and the pilot says, "Hey Reg, look out your right window." And here is what looks like a telephone pole about 150 yards away that's going just straight up. He said, "Was that close enough?" And I said, "Yeah, that was close enough."
Our main defense, if we were fired upon, was increased speed. And we could increase 100 knots, 200 knots in just a matter of seconds, which is a lot of differential in speed for a missile to cope with.
Approaching the target area, the RSO concentrates on operating the high-tech surveillance equipment. The 6 different cameras were able to photograph 100,000 square miles in an hour, producing images with such high resolution that a vehicle's number plate could be clearly identified. On the 6th of October 1973, Soviet-backed Egypt and Syria attacked Israel and made dramatic territorial gains. With the Middle East caught up in the politics of the Cold War, an Israeli defeat would bring with it the threat of nuclear conflict. The Soviets had launched their Cosmos 596 satellite, bringing them immediate intelligence from the battlefronts and putting them one step ahead of the United States. It was time to bring in the Blackbird. The sr-71 would fly directly from Griffiths Air Force Base, New York, to the Middle East. The flight would be over 11 hours long, with 6 refuelings. On the 12th of October, under codename Giant Reach, the mission began.
We took off from Rome, New York around 1 or 2 in the morning because you want to be over a target area somewhere between 11 and 1 o'clock. This allows you to have some shadows so the photo interpreters can go ahead and judge elevation, but yet get you the best sun position you can have.
By 10 o'clock in the morning, the sr-71 had reached its 2nd refueling point over Portugal. Because of the highly classified nature of this mission, no one other than the tanker crew knew they were coming.
On the way into that particular refueling, the tanker crews said the Portuguese control kept calling out an airplane in relation to the tanker. And the tanker says, you know, we don't see anybody. Of course, they knew it was us, but I'm sure that they could tell on their scope something was happening because the 2 blips merged for a while, for 20 minutes, and then this one accelerates on.
Jim Shelton approached the Egyptian coastline. The Egyptians were well equipped, with their Soviet allies constantly replenishing their supplies. With 160 SAM missile sites, many secretly commanded by Soviets, and sophisticated radar tracking systems, they were on full-scale alert, watching the skies for any enemy infiltration.
As soon as we got into range of the Egyptian SAM sites, they started tracking us.
The Egyptians, alerted to an unidentified aircraft appearing on their radar systems and presuming the plane to be either Israeli or American, scrambled to launch their surface-to-air missiles. 80,000 feet above them, traveling at a speed of over Mach 3, Jim Shelton's Blackbird was gathering thousands of feet of film, capturing the extent and whereabouts of the Egyptian military forces.
You had the radar receiver in the back cockpit. Gary could tell me that, yes, now we're being tracked by some SAM missile. We need to do something. So at that particular point, we would jam, we would speed up.
By the time the Egyptian missiles were ready to fire, the sr-71 had already cleared their airspace and was speeding towards Israel. But the heavily armed Israelis also had no knowledge of this covert Blackbird operation and immediately went on full alert.
When we rolled in on the first pass over Israel, my defensive system just lighted up like a pinball machine. And I indicated to my pilot, I got all these indications back here. I said, just, maybe keep your eyes open, because seems like somebody's shooting at us.
Despite launching a barrage of missiles, the Israelis did not manage to shoot their presumed enemy out of the sky. The Blackbird headed back to the United States.
We got everything we were tasked for, got the airplane back, and that's the first time airplane, the SR-71, had flown 11 hours and 20 minutes.
8 more successful Blackbird missions supplied detailed intelligence that the war was now turning in Israel's favor. With this information, the United States was able to broker an eventual ceasefire on the 24th of October.
I think the SR-71 contributed greatly to the resolution of that war. No one knew the airplane could fly that far and perform a mission like that and come back and hand the intelligence people the product.
August 26, 1981, North Korea. The communist regime of Kim Il-sung is flexing its military muscles. Fearing an invasion of the democratic South, the West desperately needs intelligence.
We had to understand what is happening with the North Korean order of battle. What is their intention? Where are their forces? What are they up to? What are they doing? And there was only one system that could furnish that information, and it was the SR-71.
Now, it'll fly secret missions to locate the North Koreans' anti-aircraft missiles. August 1981, and in the midst of renewed hostilities, North Korea has fired a Soviet-made guided missile at a Blackbird spy plane.
Okay, I see it, visual.
Aircrew Maury Rosenberg and Ed McKim have less than 1 minute to impact.
It's climbing.
And the next few seconds, I could tell it was rapidly climbing.
Missile exploded.
17 years after its first flight, the Blackbird is still the world's best spy plane. The Soviets even developed the MiG-25 jet fighter to bring it down. But not a single SR-71 is ever lost to enemy fire. An unmatched record.
In 1972, the revolutionary leader of Libya, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, announced that he was giving aid to terrorist organizations in Europe and the Middle East. He issued repeated threats to America and indicated that those who crossed the Gulf of Sidra would be crossing a line of death. Then, on the 5th of April 1986, a bomb exploded in a West Berlin disco. Among the 232 casualties, 2 American servicemen were killed. The United States found clear evidence that Libyan leader Colonel Gaddafi was behind the attack. The British government would allow the United States to fly the missions from their bases in England. At 9:30 a.m. on the 14th of April, the sr-71 crew members were ordered to a top-secret briefing. They were informed that the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing at Lakenheath would be striking selected Libyan targets within hours. The sr-71's job would be to record the results of the airstrikes against Tripoli and Benghazi. By the time the sr-71 crews arrived to prepare for their mission, the F-111s were already bombing Libya.
My fellow Americans, at 7 o'clock this evening, Eastern Time, air and naval forces of the United States launched a series of strikes against the headquarters, terrorist facilities, and military assets that support Muammar Gaddafi's subversive activities.
Flying in directly after a bombing raid, the crews could expect Libya's sophisticated air defense network to be on full alert and eager to retaliate.
We were subsonic off Land's End, getting ready to get to the tanker, and we saw the string of F-111s coming back. And my backseater, Walter, was counting the planes as they came back and passed us. And he came up one short, and he knew that somebody had not made it home. And we were very sad in the cockpit at that time, before we even started, that we had lost an entire crew.
But the Libyans, equipped with the latest Soviet long-range high-altitude missiles, posed the greatest threat yet to the Blackbird.
It was at that time that Walter started picking up some missile signals. He got 2 indications and then actually got a launch indication. And we had a big decision to make, where we were running into the target area before we made the turn. Do we continue to that point where Gaddafi's headquarters were, or do we make a turn away now to save ourselves from the missiles? And our decision was to push the throttles forward. And we thought in 14 seconds we can beat that missile to that point and then make the turn. Made the turn, went feet wet, got to the coast, and I will tell you, that was probably the fastest I've ever seen the SR-71 fly.
They'd outrun the missile, gathered the photographic intelligence, and were now heading away from the danger zone.
Walt said, okay, you can pull it back now. My hand was still locked in the forward position there. We were seeing Mach numbers that were a little scary, that we had not seen before, and the jet did it effortlessly.
The intelligence photos that were brought back clearly showed that the bombing mission had been a success. It was decided there would be no need to risk more American airmen's lives over Libya with further bombing.